boy tried to chat up his female classmate but accidentally shot a sausage at her. He squeezed ketchup back at it. Despite being the top student in the school, she was not the library reading champion, which upset her. She inquired about his school ranking. Choi Eung replied he was 267th out of 267 students. Her first thought was, where did this weirdo come from? At the opening ceremony, Choi Eung met this girl named Yeon Soo, a distinguished new student who spoke on stage. Her walk resembled a fighting rooster, prompting him to take a second look. He noticed her unfashionable shoes, which even his mom wouldn't wear. Since she was the first to make eye contact with him at school, he gave her a kind smile, only for Yeon Soo to retort, ended up entangled because of a school documentary. The film was about the top and bottom students living together for a month. They became desk mates. Choi Eung was noisy, which bothered Yeon Soo. She warned that she would throw away any flashy items that crossed a certain line on the desk. In retaliation, Choi Eung pushed her books back over the line. From that moment, Choi Eung found her more annoying than he had imagined. Being desk mates with a top student was too difficult. Every time he was about to fall asleep, she would raise her hand to ask the teacher a question. In the cafeteria, he tried to improve their relationship, but accidentally shot sausage at Yeon Soo again, earning himself a splatter of ketchup. In physical education, Choi Eung was used as a shield, and in evening study, he laughed out loud while reading a comic book, disturbing Yeon Soo, who threw it out. After a month of filming, the director asked them what they disliked about each other. Choi Eung disliked Yeon Soo's selfishness and harsh words, while Yeon Soo disliked useless, troublesome, and unthoughtful people. After some bickering, the director asked what they thought they would be like in 10 years. Yeon Soo believed she would still be as excellent, while Choi Eung hoped for a peaceful and calm life. The only common wish was that they hoped to have no further interactions in 10 years. Unexpectedly, their documentary caused a stir online. 10 years later, Yeon Soo wasn't living as she hoped, just working at an advertising agency, handling interruptions with patience. Thankfully, her last point caught the interest of manager Jang, who boasted he could invite an unseen illustrator, though he still mocked her for being too verbose. Meanwhile, Choi Eung was living the quiet life he had wanted, becoming an invisible millionaire unknown even to his parents. In the evenings, he rode his beloved scooter back to his 1,000 square meter mansion, immersed in his music and his own world. Indeed, Choi Eung was the famous illustrator in Korea that Yeon Soo was looking for, with even the popular idol NJ as his fan. When he learned his favorite celebrity was coming to visit, his assistant excitedly prepared, but Choi Eung was indifferent. How would you treat an ex-girlfriend who had abandoned you for many years? Yeon Soo was troubled about inviting a mysterious illustrator. As she viewed each of his artworks, they felt oddly familiar. Nearing 30, she went on a blind date at her friend's suggestion, braving the rain. Unexpectedly, she found Section Chief Jang, wearing the same outfit, also there. After an awkward greeting, she sat at the next table to wait. This was the 5th time she had stood up the same man. He listed the times and places of her previous cancellations, glanced at Yeon Soo, and remarked that it now seemed not worth the wait. Confused, Yeon Soo watched him leave, feeling bitter and prepared to go herself. However, she saw Jang smirking and hoped he would keep this secret. Jang pricked her heart again, asking if she wanted him to keep the blind date or the rejection a secret. Sitting down for dinner with Jang, whose unfriendly demeanor became apparent, she teased him about their similarities noted by colleagues, their style, aloofness, and workaholism. Discussing matching outfits, both expressed disdain, yet Yeon Soo remembered past love, noting how it can change someone. After a documentary ended, Yeon Soo and Choi Eung had dated for 5 years, but it ended poorly. The next morning, Choi Eung was awakened by a noisy doorbell. Yeon Soo, his ex, stood outside. After a long stare, Choi Eung sprayed her with alcohol, a gesture seemingly well practiced, intending to drive her away like a demon. In their 5th year together, Yeon Soo had asked what he would do if she left him. Choi Eung, usually jovial, was serious that night, saying he would cut ties and drive her away if she returned. Years after their breakup, the exorcism began. Yeon Soo hadn't forgotten and asked about the salt. She found Choi Eung increasingly unpleasant, while he speculated about her motives for visiting. Yeon Soo presented a pile of illustrations, using their past conversations and her knowledge of him to confirm that Choi Eung was the mysterious illustrator. Despite his initial refusal to admit it, Choi-young bluntly revealed his identity when he realized Yeon-soo needed the illustrator. He took a stance of superiority, reminiscent of their past indifference. Yeon-soo, needing to preserve her job, explained the collaboration plan with a smile, but Choi-young seized the opportunity to snub her. He refused without reason, simply not wanting to. As Yeon-soo was about to erupt, Choi-young reminded her of their professional boundaries. Amidst their argument, he admitted to disliking public appearances and blamed her as part of the reason. Yeon-soo endured the humiliation, stating she wouldn't have approached him if not for work. Still not over their breakup, Choi-young questioned why she seemed so detached after 5 years. Thus, they parted unhappily. However, Choi-young didn't forget to complete the exorcism, finally using the salt he had saved for 5 years. The idol became a fan's sycophant. She read the fan's text but didn't reply, so she visited him to ask why. Idol NJ hoped Choi-young would paint her mansion just to interact more with Choi-young. Seeing Choi-young's indifference, she left wisely. Yeon-soo did not want to be humiliated by Choi-young again, but remembering her boss's demeanor, she considered asking again. Choi-young recalled arguing with Yeon-soo, wondering if he was too harsh. The next day, Yeon-soo went to work confidently, deciding to explain to her boss that she couldn't find the illustrator and would replace him with another plan. Seeing the boss, she didn't know how to start. The boss didn't give Yeon-soo a chance to speak and took her to discuss the event details. To ease the awkwardness, she asked if the boss got home safely after drinking. The boss, puzzled, asked if she forgot what happened. This embarrassing memory flooded back. Unable to interrupt, Manager Jang patiently listened to Yeon-soo's complaints. Remembering this, Yeon-soo quickly apologized to her boss, who said there was no need to apologize, just ensure the plan goes smoothly. This made changing the plan even harder to discuss. What a bizarre social death in front of the boss, calling him an antisocial, cold-hearted person. When the boss tried to interject, she bluntly told him to shut up. Reminded by his assistant, Choi-young carefully reviewed Yeon-soo's event plan, designed by his favorite architect. This should have been an easy yes, but he rejected it without looking, just to humiliate Yeon-soo. Choi-young was conflicted again. The assistant took Choi-young to see the architect-designed building, to see if it would change Choi-young's mind and make him accept the project. At the elevator, they met again. After a brief introduction, they dispersed awkwardly. Seeing Choi-young's immaturity again, Yeon-soo decided to tell her boss she couldn't find a way to contact the illustrator. Manager Jang, knowing everything, asked Yeon-soo, didn't she remember what happened at her doorstep? Then Yeon-soo recalled the last embarrassing moment. She had drunkenly told her boss about the illustrator's identity, and that they had broken up 5 years ago, and she was too ashamed to contact him. Manager Jang said, if their personal relationship made her uncomfortable, he could find someone else to follow up. Yeon-soo didn't want to lose this opportunity, and met Choi-young again in the elevator. Due to an elevator malfunction, they had 5 more minutes alone. Yeon-soo knew Choi-young had rejected the proposal without even looking, commenting he was still as immature after 5 years. Choi-young asked if she could handle his seriousness instead of his immaturity. As the elevator doors opened, their conversation hadn't finished. Choi-young suddenly fled, because the TV station wanted to film a sequel to their documentary from 10 years ago. The leadership assigned this task to Choi-young's childhood friend, Kim Ji-young. Knowing what had happened between them, and realizing he couldn't facilitate this, he thought about refusing. But after binge-watching dramas all night, he got more invested and decided to persuade both sides to make the sequel. The next morning, he told Choi-young he wanted to reshoot the documentary with Yeon-soo. Choi-young verbally refused, but in the next scene, he smiled more than anyone in front of the camera. Would your girlfriend argue on your behalf? Would she compete with you in drinking? Would she carry you home when you're drunk? Would she make you get the same hairstyle as your idol? Due to a hurried escape in the afternoon, Choi-young couldn't sleep well that night, his mind filled with memories of Yeon-soo. She was the type who would rather tear up her class notes than lend them to classmates requesting help before exams. Yeon-soo, lacking social skills, would only sign her own name during group reports. Competitive by nature, she had to win even at social drinking. Often arguing with seniors at school, Yeon-soo did things her own way. Because she liked the curly hair she saw in a magazine, she insisted Choi-young maintain the same hairstyle. Her part-time job was her excuse to miss the last cherry blossom viewing of the year with Choi-young, and her need to revise assignments was why she refused lunch with him, even though he had made a special trip. Friends wondered why he dated someone like Yeon-soo, but the real Yeon-soo, whom only Choi-eung knew, would carefully tutor him, laugh with his family, carry him home when he was drunk, stand up for him during disputes, and create romantic moments to cheer him up. Only Choi-eung saw this side of her, making it impossible for him not to love her. However, when he felt happiest, she pushed him into despair. Underneath these sweet and painful memories, Choi-eung finally fell asleep. He woke up and instructed his assistant to pile on more work, keeping him too busy to dwell on troubling memories. Meanwhile, his childhood friend Kim Ji-young informed him that the old documentary had become popular again, and the TV station wanted to reshoot a special on him and Yeon-soo. Choi-eung, still hurt by the breakup, refused to participate. Despite Kim Ji-young's advice to revisit the old videos, he worried it might lead Choi-eung back into a self-destructive spiral. By night, Choi-eung drunkenly shopped, skipped classes, and lost money on stocks, behaviors Yeon-soo despised, just to spite her. Life became hectic as he turned to painting to pay off his debts. Kim Ji-young, after stealthily watching the documentary and praising Choi-eung, reminded him that Yeon-soo was even less keen on filming. Upon hearing this, Choi-eung had an epiphany. Meanwhile, Yeon-soo, surrounded by their documentaries on her computer, couldn't help but start watching them again. Reflecting on their past, she considered the childish version of Choi-eung she had recently encountered, and thought they would no longer cross paths. But fate seemed to mock them. Since their breakup 5 years ago, and especially after the exorcism, they had run into each other absurdly often, whether she was fixing makeup by a car window, at intersections, in taxis, or at supermarkets. Choi-eung suspected Yeon-soo was stalking him, while she simply said her home was nearby and he could move if uncomfortable. Still as self-centered as ever, Choi-eung used his identity as an illustrator to provoke Yeon-soo, who retorted by deciding to find another artist, claiming the new one was far better, before walking away. The next day, learning that a client specifically requested Choi-eung for a collaboration, Yeon-soo was at a loss. After work, Kim Ji-young approached her about the shooting, which she flatly refused. To persuade her, Kim Ji-young explained that if Choi-eung decided to cause someone pain, it would happen. He would willingly bear the harm he must take on. You should soon understand what this means. Because of Yeon-soo, Choi-eung came to drink alone, complaining to his assistant about Yeon-soo. The assistant advised Choi-eung to back down, otherwise they would replace him with another artist in the project. Choi-eung said he didn't even have enough time to get mad at her. Why should Yeon-soo benefit for nothing? At this point, he started to scheme. Who suffers more? The one who breaks up or the one who is dumped? After dinner, a drunk Choi-eung walked home and encountered Yeon-soo again. Their eyes met, making Choi-eung recall the night they broke up, when Yeon-soo pushed him away cruelly without giving a reason. In the same place with the same people, Choi-eung instinctively grabbed Yeon-soo's hand, wanting to ask for the reason. Ultimately, he didn't ask and let go of her hand. The next day, when Yeon-soo arrived at the office, the colleagues congratulated him, saying he had agreed to help them with something. Yeon-soo suddenly had a bad feeling. Choi-eung was also bracing for a storm, and as the doorbell rang, Choi-eung smirked. At the door, Yeon-soo recalled Kim Ji-young's words and broke out in a cold sweat. Then Choi-eung appeared, and seeing his smug expression, Yeon-soo understood everything. He truly is crazy, because Choi-eung's condition was to film a documentary with him for a month to agree to the project. Yeon-soo was once again defeated by immaturity. The more Yeon-soo disliked it, the happier Choi-eung became. The next scene was Yeon-soo's solo interview, indifferent and carefree. "I'm a laid-back person. I never hold grudges." But was that really true? After breaking up 5 years ago, Yeon-soo always appeared calm, studying normally, working part-time normally, eating normally. But late at night, when locking the bathroom door, he would reveal his sadness. Yeon-soo believed Choi-eung had liked her first. Choi-eung asked if she was sick. Yeon-soo believed it was Choi-eung who confessed first. Choi-eung said he should have been clearer when she pursued him back then. "I should have just run away." In Choi-eung's memory, the story happened on the last day of filming. It was raining heavily. They took shelter in a pavilion. The photographer went back to get an umbrella and battery, giving the young couple a chance to be alone. Amid the awkward atmosphere, Choi-eung gentlemanly took off his coat and draped it over Yeon-soo. Looking into her eyes, Choi-young thought Yeon-soo had feelings for him. Yeon-soo immediately interrupted, accusing him of making up memories. Another version emerged from Yeon-soo's mind. That day wasn't awkward as usual, and Choi-young hesitated a long time before taking off his coat for her. This difference in perspectives caused a disagreement. Finally, Choi-young said, "It was Yeon-soo's actions that made the atmosphere weird." Yeon-soo didn't deny it. Choi-young asked during today's final interview, "Do you still think I'm wasting your time?" Yeon-soo replied, "I'll tell them it felt okay." Choi-young also said he didn't dislike Yeon-soo. It was the first time Yeon-soo heard someone say they didn't dislike her, leaving her unsettled. Under the weird atmosphere, Choi-young got a bit carried away, and Yeon-soo thought Choi-young had a fever, starting to fuss over him like an old married couple, suddenly making the atmosphere even weirder. Both thought they had a fever, looking into each other's eyes deeply. Choi-young expressed his feelings. "I think I like you." After the interview concluded, the first reaction of both was to ask Kim Ji-young not to disclose their past relationship, to avoid complications during post-production editing. Then they exchanged sharp words. However, this filming was not going smoothly. Choi-young helped at his parents' restaurant in the morning, slept in the afternoon, and painted at night. Yeon-soo went for a run early in the morning, worked at her company, and then continued her typical daily activities. Kim Ji-young was worried about the lack of interesting content for the shoot and decided to use a powerful trick. In a dream, an ex-girlfriend appeared, and he instinctively touched her face, only to realize it was reality. How should he behave now? The next morning, Choi-young woke up to find no cameras around and went back to sleep. Due to the heartbreak from 5 years ago and his irregular sleep schedule due to painting, Choi-young often couldn't sleep well, blurring reality with dreams. When Yeon-soo appeared in his dream, he instinctively touched her face, but the beautiful dream shattered with her resistance, leaving Choi-young trembling in fear, making the situation awkward for both. To ease the tension, Choi-young invited Yeon-soo to view his illustrations. While admiring the artwork and praising it, Choi-young felt secretly pleased. Upon seeing a flawed painting, he recalled how Yeon-soo had once destroyed it, later repaired with correction fluid, and now preserved. Yeon-soo commented that it was hardly noticeable, adding that he shouldn't hold a grudge over a few ruined paintings. This touched a sore spot for Choi-young. Yeon-soo, puzzled, asked, "What exactly have I ruined in your life? Look at how well you're living now." Choi-young replied, feeling wronged. "Maybe it's just like that painting, not obvious at first glance." As Yeon-soo prepared to leave, she told Choi-young, "Do you think our breakup was all my fault?" Kim Ji-young recorded all this. That evening, Choi-young regretted his petty words, and Yeon-soo regretted not being more carefree. The next day, another illustrator hinted in an interview that Choi-young was the plagiarist. Choi-young said he didn't care, but was actually very angry. That night, Choi-young was deep in thought, not upset about the plagiarism accusations, but wondering why Yeon-soo hadn't contacted him. Meanwhile, Yeon-soo was staying up late to clarify for Choi-young online. Years after their breakup, the couple still bickered sweetly on camera, but discussions about the cause of their breakup always ended poorly. Choi-young attended a meeting at Yeon-soo's company, seeing her close interaction with manager Kim, recalling colleagues' gossip that manager Kim was interested in Yeon-soo, which made him jealous. Manager Kim straightforwardly asked Choi-young about the plagiarism, and looking at Yeon-soo for support and finding none, Choi-young firmly denied any plagiarism, saying there were countless reasons to prove his innocence, but no evidence of him plagiarizing anyone. Manager Kim apologized for the offense. Seeing Choi-young about to refuse an invitation, he mentioned that Yeon-soo would also attend, which led Choi-young to accept. Unfamiliar with attending upscale events, Choi-young worried about his attire and thought of NJ, a well-connected idol, to help him out. NJ was thrilled to assist Choi-young, and after some fitting sessions, they finalized his suit for the evening. That night, Yeon-soo prepared to send Choi-young a comforting text message. After several edits, I typed 4 words, "I believe in you, Sky." However, I ultimately didn't send it. The next day, Yeon-soo dressed up for a banquet where she encountered Choi-young, who appeared different after some changes. They both took a second look upon seeing the changes in each other. Just as they were about to speak, team leader Kim called them away. At that moment, Choi-young ran into his arch-rival Nua. Their mutual taunts revealed a long-standing recognition and deep-seated grudges. Wanting to avoid Nua, Choi-young tried to leave, but Nua's remark, Hope we enjoy our cooperation, shocked him. It turned out that Nua, along with Choi Eung, was collaborating with Yeonsu's company. Choi Eung then learned that the plagiarism scandal was orchestrated by team leader Kim to make the opening event a huge success. Knowing this, an angry Choi Eung approached Yeonsu to confront her about whether she knew beforehand that Nua would be involved in the project. Despite her stunning beauty, it seemed I wasn't the only one who noticed. Yet, there was no issue because I was willing to step back, all because Choi Eung was the one who helped me when I felt most helpless, sharing everything with me as if it were natural, including his family life. Thanks to him, my life seemed attached to others, creating a semblance of happiness. Clearly, Yeonsu was unaware of these developments. Team leader Kim remarked that this was the desired outcome and that it didn't violate any contract. Yeonsu told him that he would definitely need to apologize. Choi Eung was always like this, stable and calm until Yeonsu appeared, which then shook his world. Back home, Yeonsu remembered how, years ago, due to her pride, she struggled to apologize to Choi Eung, who would internalize the hardship. The next morning, she prepared to apologize to Choi Eung. However, Yeonsu, being insincere, explained to the cameraman that it wasn't her fault, but a misunderstanding. She called Choi Eung, but no one answered, which embarrassed her greatly. In frustration, she gave up on apologizing. The story started when I first met this girl. She was incredibly beautiful, and it seemed I wasn't the only one who thought so. However, there was no problem as long as I stepped back, simply because that person was Choi Eung. He had helped me when I was most helpless and shared everything with me as if it were natural, including his family. Thanks to him, my life was able to cling to others and create an appearance of happiness. While Choi Eung and his manager were dining at a restaurant, they unexpectedly ran into Yeonsu. Because her company had hired Choi Eung's rival for a collaboration, Yeonsu, after some internal conflict, wanted to apologize. Just as she was about to speak, Choi Eung apologized first, saying, "Ignore the unnecessary things I said yesterday." Yeonsu responded, "I was wrong first." Before Yeonsu could finish, Choi Eung interjected, "I know it wasn't your fault, so it's okay." When Yeonsu tried to express that she would formally apologize and cancel the collaboration with Nuya, Choi Eung cut her off again. "I'm willing to work with Nuya. I have no reason to avoid it, and you don't need to apologize. I've already discussed it with manager Kim." Although everything was finally on track, Yeonsu felt that the current Choi Eung was very different. He was no longer childish and his answers were very formal, which troubled Yeonsu. After dinner, Choi Eung was unsure whether his actions were right or wrong. The next day, Yeonsu learned that Choi Eung had decided to paint for 100 hours, including 5 hours live at the event, with only 5 days left. This meant Choi Eung had to paint for 19 hours each day. Yeonsu was completely silent. Choi Eung worked from midnight until dawn, resting briefly in a rocking chair before resuming painting. As the event's eve approached, she thought of calling Choi Eung to check on him, but recalling the unfamiliar Choi Eung, she instead called Kim Ji-young to inquire about his situation. Learning that Choi Eung was alone at home painting, Yeonsu returned home still worried about his health, muttering, "Can't you just let me rest easy? Would it hurt to update me on your progress?" Though she said she didn't care, the next moment she was at Choi Eung's doorstep. After a mental struggle, she knocked on the door. Choi Eung looked especially haggard. The assertive Yeonsu still emphasized she was just there to check the progress. The jujube tea was also sent by the company. After handing the tea to Choi Eung, she turned to leave, but at that moment, Choi Eung grabbed Yeonsu's hand. Years after their breakup, the lovers met again. That night, as the man held the woman's hand, asking her to stay over, the woman recalled the reasons they had to break up. Growing up in a poor family, Yeonsu couldn't share things with friends and was ostracized, making her dislike being with friends. Even when mocked, she pretended not to care about those things. Until she met Choi Eung, the only person who could make Yeonsu close her eyes and escape reality with his love and warmth. With Yeonsu's help, Choi Eung, who was last in his class, was admitted to a design art college. As college graduation neared, Yeonsu prepared to find a job to provide a better life for her grandmother. Choi Eung felt Yeonsu should pursue further studies and bigger dreams. For Choi Eung, who grew up comfortably, staying with family, and Yeonsu was the most satisfying life. Reality made Yeonsu even crueler. Besides supporting her grandmother, she was forced to move away. When Yeon-soo heard that Choi-young gave up further studies for her and saw her own miserable life, she ultimately faced reality and let go. The real reason for breaking up was the fear that her intense inferiority would be seen through if they continued the relationship. Choi-young woke up from the sofa. Choi-young, who hadn't had a full night's sleep in a long time, saw the thermos on the desk and remembered that Yeon-soo had been there, but couldn't recall what had happened. The boy had lived a carefree life, while you grew up in poverty with heavy debts. He gave up further education opportunities for you just to be by your side. Are you cruel to let go, or do you continue to silently protect? Yeon-soo arrived early at the venue to prepare for the opening. When asked during a meeting when Choi-young would arrive, she couldn't help but recall the incident at Choi-young's doorstep and the two collapsing on the sofa the previous night. Choi-young arrived at the venue and went to the rest area. Seeing a tired Yeon-soo sleeping, he initially wanted to leave, but couldn't resist watching her a bit longer and sat down to observe quietly. He finally saw the real Yeon-soo. As she woke up, Choi-young quickly stood up, pretending he had just arrived. The awake Yeon-soo, worried Choi-young would ask about last night, felt momentarily overwhelmed. When Choi-young asked, "Did you come to my house?" Realizing he didn't remember, she was relieved. Upon seeing Choi-young's art recordings, she was captivated by his unfamiliar approach. As the event was about to start, Choi-young's parents, dressed up, came to watch. Choi-young sat down and began painting in silence, presenting a side his parents had never seen, causing them only heartache. In Yeon-soo's solo interview, although she still complained about Choi-young, she found herself with endless things to say about him today. Feeling that Choi-young had become a stranger, she was a bit saddened, thinking he would never change. Choi-young's parents, seeing him painting alone, felt distressed and left the venue hurriedly, but ran into Yeon-soo and chatted more. Choi-young's mother hesitated, then returned to tell Yeon-soo about Choi-young's pain, suggesting she must have been hurt too and insisting she visit their home. Hearing this, a strong-willed Yeon-soo could only retreat to the rest area to nurse her wounds alone. The man's dream was simply to live a mundane life with his girlfriend and family, but it was shattered by an abrupt breakup. After finishing his painting with a little time left, the socially anxious Choi-young briefly introduced himself, then started looking for Yeon-soo. Just as he was about to embrace her, he was intercepted by the idol NJ, spending the moment under the flashlights instead. After the event, Yeon-soo skipped the company's celebration banquet and went to her best friend's restaurant to drink alone. Although the event ended perfectly, she couldn't feel happy. The person she once despised for being useless was herself. As Choi-young improved himself, she could only worry about making ends meet, stuck in the same place, and ended up getting drunk in her despair. Busy with the restaurant, her best friend called Kim Ji-eung to take the drunk Yeon-soo away. Upon sobering up, Yeon-soo told Kim Ji-eung that she wanted to preview the documentary, ostensibly to see if she looked foolish, but really to check if Choi-young had mentioned her. Looking him in the eye, Kim Ji-eung asked, "Do you still like Choi-young?" A strong-willed Yeon-soo said it was impossible, but was that really the case? Returning home to find Choi-young loitering at her doorstep, she didn't want to face reality and brushed him off, but he stopped her again. Recalling last night's events, Choi-young, deep in sleep from exhaustion, mistakenly embraced Yeon-soo as a dream again. He confided in Yeon-soo about his current struggles, breaking through Yeon-soo's long-suppressed defenses. However, when Choi-young inquired about last night, Yeon-soo merely mentioned leaving some jujube tea and left. It was clear that Choi-young remembered everything and confronted Yeon-soo about pretending it was a dream and lying. He questioned if their current situation was right. At that moment, Yeon-soo questioned whether their breakup 5 years ago was a mistake. Their separation was due to pride, believing he could live without Choi-young, yet he couldn't let go. In Choi-young's eyes, running away seemed to solve everything. He would climb trees to avoid reading aloud or flee to escape his father's scolding. Even during arguments with Yeon-soo, he chose to run away. However, not every situation led to escape. For example, he entered a marathon and enlisted Kim Ji-young's help to train for wearing a couple's ring with Yeon-soo, only to run away in the end. Now, Choi-young remembered last night, tearfully confiding in Yeon-soo, only to learn his assistant was throwing a party at home and had invited Yeon-soo. He promptly decided to escape with his luggage. Yeon-soo perceived this escape as cowardice, but their 5-year relationship wasn't trivial, as evidenced by Yeon-soo pretending to be drunk to escape last night and again choosing to avoid Choi-young's party today. Yet, fate intriguingly brought them together at the library, repeating a past occurrence where they met in the library to avoid an awkward situation, and Yeon-soo forgave Choi-young, inviting him to lunch. Now, neither wanted to avoid the situation. Choi-young invited Yeon-soo to dine together at his parents' restaurant. Amidst the initial small talk, Choi-young asked how Yeon-soo had been since their breakup. Yeon-soo, always strong, gave non-committal answers, which Choi-young couldn't accept, leading to their parting on unhappy terms. Choi-young, typically quiet, finally expressed his frustration, lamenting how Yeon-soo always left him in the dark, accepting her decisions without understanding. Tired of chasing, Choi-young decisively walked away, immediately regretting his harsh words. Meanwhile, a celebrity, NJ, and their detractors participated in a charity event. The detractors superficially flattered NJ, hoping to avoid a lawsuit, but NJ exposed their insincerity and decided against future participation, vowing to pursue legal action. Heartbroken, NJ sought comfort with Choi-young, their confidant. NJ complained about the lack of initiative from Choi-young in maintaining contact or inviting her for meals, leaving Choi-young at a loss for words. Yet NJ cherished his simple charm. Yeon-soo, upon returning home, reflected on Choi-young's words and decided to confront him. However, seeing him under the swing with someone else, she felt an unexpected and inexplicable sense of loss. The next morning, Kim Ji-young tricked Yeon-soo into his car. At the same time, Choi-young was coerced into a car by his assistant and producer. After a 4-hour drive, they arrived in a remote mountain area. When about to question Kim Ji-young, Yeon-soo saw Choi-young and sensed trouble. Because their previous filming lacked interesting content, Kim Ji-young resorted to taking them to a secluded mansion for a 3-day shoot. Choi-young was unhappy with this setup, responding dismissively to Kim Ji-young's questions. However, when asked about a memorable trip, Choi-young recalled a trip he'd rather forget, but couldn't. 5 years ago, Yeon-soo forced a breakup to push Choi-young into studying abroad for 6 months. Just before leaving, they went on their first trip as a couple, eating crab and visiting Choi-young's favorite beach. Despite Yeon-soo's reassurance that it wasn't a breakup trip, Choi-young worried it might be. Yeon-soo, working multiple jobs due to her family's poor circumstances, promised more relaxed trips in the future and assured she wouldn't break up with Choi-young. If they fought or broke up again, she asked Choi-young to come back to her, promising to hold on to him. Choi-young smiled brightly at this, and Yeon-soo wanted to capture the moment. Just as she was about to take the photo, Choi-young confessed his deep love. He wished to make that moment last forever. Now, these memories were still vivid for Choi-young. Seeing Yeon-soo waiting for his answer, he pretended to forget the trip, knowing the promises made were lies. Yeon-soo, hearing this, showed a hint of disappointment. She had secretly loved Choi-young for years, enjoying moments when others mistook them for a couple, but unable to express her feelings. Now at the lake, both thought the other had grown tired of them. Yeon-soo left in tears, checking her phone by the lake, only to see rumors of Choi-young with the idol NJ, which made her jealous. Choi-young, hearing that Kim Ji-young was going to film Yeon-soo alone, pretended not to care but kept urging Kim Ji-young to return soon. Hearing Yeon-soo's affectionate nickname for Kim Ji-young, Choi-young became jealous, unable to concentrate on his drawing. He returned to the villa early, but didn't see Yeon-soo and Kim Ji-young come back for a while, feeling a sudden sense of crisis as jealousy set in. Yeon-soo and Kim Ji-young were biking in the countryside, looking like a real couple. Tired, they fell asleep during the quiet afternoon, leading Yeon-soo to understand why Choi-young loved napping. A passerby mistook them for a couple, teasing them. Kim Ji-young, who had long harbored feelings for Yeon-soo, was secretly pleased and did not deny their supposed relationship. That evening, everyone had dinner together. Facing the display of affection from her friend and assistant, they just ate silently. Hearing Yeon-soo talk about her leisurely bike ride with Kim Ji-young in the afternoon made Choi-young lose his composure as he pointed out her usual dislike for lazy mornings and preference for tightly scheduled trips. Yeon-soo, to provoke Choi-young, mentioned that traveling companions make a difference. This led to their usual bickering, stunning everyone around. At that moment, the pop star NJ sent a video, causing Choi-young to quickly leave the scene. This sparked jealousy in Yeon-soo, who awkwardly fled upon encountering someone at the stairwell. Yeonsu spent the night tossing and turning, haunted by Choi-young's weary words and his closeness with NJ, preventing her from sleeping. Meanwhile, Choi-young resorted to drawing to forget a cherished memory he couldn't erase. The next day, to ensure the couple rested well, everyone went to scout the filming location first. Waking up and not seeing anyone, Yeonsu was confused. She went to Choi-young's room and saw him still sleeping, and realized he had another restless night from the drawing on his table. As she saw Choi-young's furrowed brow, she instinctively smoothed it out. Choi-young subconsciously grabbed her other hand. Yeonsu hesitated before pulling her hand away and slowly left. After she departed, Choi-young opened his eyes, having tested Yeonsu's feelings. Yeonsu, now outside, wondered if Choi-young had really been asleep. During Choi-young's shoot, the man from the previous day reappeared and chatted with Kim Ji-young about the girlfriend matter, which Kim Ji-young casually did not deny. Choi-young felt a mix of emotions. During Yeonsu's shoot, the camera battery died, and the producer left to get a replacement. Suddenly, it started raining heavily, reminding Yeonsu of the last day of shooting 10 years ago without the male lead. Then, Choi-young appeared with an umbrella, standing afar, and asked why he was facing her again, feeling cursed. Yeonsu, feeling helpless, blamed herself again. To escape Choi-young once more, she braved the rain, but was stopped by him. Seeing Yeonsu drenched, Choi-young couldn't bear it and extended the umbrella towards her. Yeonsu then asked if he wanted her to leave or stay. This time, Choi-young chose to answer Yeonsu's question with his actions. Yeonsu was frustrated, hoping for a letter from the other person. She confided in her best friend about this. However, realizing Choi-young hadn't reached out, she couldn't help feeling down. Her best friend noticed something was off, but Yeonsu didn't deny it. She also feared Choi-young might say their kiss was a mistake, leading her to uncontrollably cry. Facing this relationship, Yeonsu believed being firm would help her slowly forget the relationship she had harshly ended. Yet when facing Choi-young, her resolve seemed incredibly fragile. Desperate for answers, Yeonsu rushed to Choi-young's house, barging in without waiting for him to speak and venting her frustrations fueled by alcohol, asking, "Are you scum?" Seeing Choi-young act nonchalantly, she demanded if he had nothing to say and what he intended to do. Choi-young didn't want to cut ties with Yeonsu. Before she left, he asked somewhat shamefully, "Can we just be friends?" It was late at night, and when Yeonsu went to her ex-boyfriend's house hoping to reconcile, he callously refused but suggested being friends, which she accepted. Thus began their friendship game. Yeonsu took the lead with mischief, declaring she would stay overnight at Choi-young's as a friend. She slept on the couch without waiting for his consent. Choi-young, unsure of what to do, quietly covered her with a blanket and immersed himself in painting. At dawn, Choi-young came out of his studio, saw the tidy bedding, and thought Yeonsu had left. However, freshly showered Yeonsu emerged from the room, stating she hoped he would be gone when she woke up. Yeonsu didn't leave, and instead prepared a lavish lunch, wearing the couple's outfit from 5 years ago. Though reluctant, Choi-young feigned illness to cancel an important interview when Yeonsu suggested they play games together for the day. They enjoyed an afternoon of games, a relaxation they never had while dating. Jealousy arose when Yeonsu saw idol NJ calling Choi-young and asked about their relationship as a friend. Choi-young retorted by asking when she and Kim Ji-young had become so close, quickly changing the subject, realizing his mistake. Later, Choi-young received a message. Honest Yeonsu wouldn't peek at someone else's phone. Seeing Choi-young had canceled important work because of her, Yeonsu was utterly confused about his intentions. Choi-young's explanations seemed like lies to her. Just as she was about to press further, the doorbell rang. The three stared at each other, puzzled. After years apart, the ex-lovers chose to be friends today and enjoyed their time together. However, when faced with a mutual friend, Yeonsu hastily made an excuse to leave Choi-young's house, but still thoughtfully told him to take the bus home at night and turned on all the yard lights to see her off. The next day, she headed early to Choi-young's house, supposedly to retrieve a makeup bag she had left behind. Her best friend teased that leaving the makeup bag was just an excuse to spend more time with Choi-young, which she didn't deny. However, arriving at Choi-young's, she saw idol NJ, a young fan, being interviewed. This gave Yeonsu a bad feeling. After the interview, NJ quickly pulled Choi-young out for a date. Yeonsu's jealousy spiked, and she made excuses to keep Choi-young there, claiming she had left something important at his house. Choi Eung told her to go in and find it as usual, leaving Yeon-soo at a loss for words. I could only watch as the two left. They had lunch together, talking and laughing. Only in front of the genuine Choi Eung could NJ, the idol, shed her celebrity facade and reveal a bright smile. In the evening, Choi Eung took NJ home. NJ wanted to spend all her rare free time with Choi Eung. Before parting, she boldly invited Choi Eung upstairs, but he declined and left the car. After returning home, NJ felt repeatedly frustrated. Yet, thinking of the sincere Choi Eung, she was momentarily overwhelmed by love, foolishly finding solace in her unrequited love. Meanwhile, Yeon-soo was distracted, constantly wondering about Choi Eung and NJ's date, which led her to absent-mindedly leave a cucumber in the soup. She received a text from Choi Eung and a flood of memories surfaced when she saw him. Choi Eung was still the same person, foolishly waiting at the door as always. In that moment, Yeon-soo realized her foolish, unrequited love for Choi Eung when he specially brought her the makeup bag she had left behind. Facing Choi Eung, Yeon-soo stuttered, trying to express her feelings, but was interrupted by her grandmother. The grandmother invited Choi Eung for dinner, but was not pleased with him, blaming him for Yeon-soo's long tears. From her grandmother, Yeon-soo learned of their past separation and felt deeply saddened. Choi Eung said nothing and quietly ate, while the grandmother, albeit tough in words, was soft-hearted, urging the thin Choi Eung to eat more. Just before leaving, Choi Eung inadvertently said something that almost broke Yeon-soo. A woman learns of her ex-boyfriend and the idol NJ's rumored affair. Outwardly indifferent, she comforts herself upon seeing NJ's billboard, acknowledging that though NJ is prettier and younger, she isn't Choi Eung's type. At work, she overhears colleagues discussing Choi Eung and NJ's scandal, and even the students on the street talk about it. Despite claiming indifference, the sight of a jujube stall reminds her that jujube tea helps with sleep. She ends up buying 2 bags for Choi Eung, involuntarily ending up at his house. Due to the weak bag, jujubes fell along the way. NJ arrived to see Choi Eung, and to avoid awkwardness, she decided to leave with the jujubes but was stopped by NJ. On the surface, there was no direct confrontation, but both knew of their mutual affection for Choi Eung. On his way home, Choi Eung picked up jujubes all the way to his house, pondering the situation. The next day, seeing the jujubes at Yeon-soo's house, he learned from the grandmother that Yeon-soo often made jujube tea to help him sleep, stirring mixed feelings in him. The grandmother, knowing Yeon-soo had hurt Choi Eung, earnestly told him that Yeon-soo had grown up with her, inheriting her bad temper and harsh words. Yet Choi Eung didn't see it that way. Later, drinking alone, he was found by Yeon-soo. They sat down for a long overdue face-to-face, drinking and eating hot pot. Bolstered by alcohol, Yeon-soo was about to say she couldn't just be friends with Choi Eung when he suddenly interrupted, pleading, "Please keep loving me." Both ended up drunk, and Choi Eung revealed a secret he had kept for over 20 years. His biological father had abandoned him as a child. I later met my current parents. No wonder Choi Eung was so hung up on being abandoned by her 5 years ago. Seeing Choi Eung weeping bitterly, Yeon-soo slowly removed Choi Eung's hand and kissed it. A woman in the throes of love is always distracted while eating, eagerly awaiting her partner's call. She would rush at the sound of her phone ringing. While preparing for work, Yeon-soo was puzzled by the absence of a call from Choi Eung. Torn, she decided to call Choi Eung. Upon leaving the house, she found Choi Eung waiting at the doorstep. Seeing Choi Eung looking worn, she felt her heart ache. She scolded Choi Eung for not sleeping well and running around. Choi Eung quickly stopped this motherly lecture. Choi Eung's response instantly melted Yeon-soo. He then continued his advances, pinning Yeon-soo against the wall. He hoped Yeon-soo would take a day off to play together. Yeon-soo, being rational, controlled her restless heart, refused Choi Eung, and told him to go back to sleep. This was the first day after getting back together 5 years post-breakup. Yeon-soo appeared especially shy. Wow, Yeon-soo is so cute. During work, Yeon-soo eagerly invited Choi Eung to lunch, but Choi Eung declined, claiming he was busy. After deleting and rewriting text messages, she finally replied with, "Okay." Putting down her phone, her mood instantly fell. Indeed, Choi Eung had urgent matters. He wanted to share the news of their reunion with his childhood friend Kim Ji-young, but found Kim Ji-young sick and sleeping. He ended up staying overnight at Kim Ji-young's to take care of him. The next morning, Choi-young called Yeon-soo proactively, greeting her like a couple, asking if she had woken up and had breakfast. Yeon-soo tentatively asked if Choi-young was free over the weekend to hang out, and Choi-young hesitantly agreed. Although Choi-young agreed, Yeon-soo still felt awkward. Choi-young also felt unaccustomed to this sudden happiness. It had been a long time since they last spoke on the phone. Next, Yeon-soo focused on her work, while Choi-young silently followed her. After work, seeing Choi-young holding a hot dog and chewing on her favorite roasted chestnuts, he revealed a sweet smile. At that moment, Yeon-soo finally felt a more genuine sense of their reunion. She initiated a kiss with Choi-young, who immediately responded, hugged Yeon-soo, and kissed her back. Compared to dramatic love, this sweet, ordinary daily life gives more security. After years apart, the two reunited, and though their feelings quickly intensified, when talking about her boyfriend and celebrity scandals, Yeon-soo still felt jealous. Hearing this, Yeon-soo obediently walked out. Then, Choi-young took Yeon-soo to his art exhibition. At that moment, Yeon-soo truly felt Choi-young's loneliness. The two hugged tightly in the empty gallery and eventually spent a wonderful night together. From then on, they began a sweet life as a couple. To adjust Choi-young's routine, Yeon-soo used effective methods, quickly finishing the unpleasant sleep aid tea. She also pulled Choi-young to jog in the morning, and on their way to work, they were inseparable. After work, Yeon-soo rushed to Choi-young's house, spending every moment together. Despite this, both had their own concerns about the relationship. Choi-young vividly remembered being abandoned without reason 5 years ago, while Yeon-soo, to maintain their hard-won reunion, started studying relationship psychology. She even asked her colleague, highly skilled in relationships, for advice on how to date her boyfriend. That evening, she invited Choi-young on a date to apply what she had learned. Upon meeting, Choi-young noticed Yeon-soo's outfit was different from the morning. Yeon-soo explained that she had bought a new set after getting her clothes dirty, which was actually a trick taught by her colleague. Occasionally showing new outfits can create a different kind of tension than usual. Then, you should respond positively to your boyfriend and give him plenty of smiles. Yeon-soo intentionally laughs out loud and claps when Choi-young speaks, which confuses him during their casual conversation. To ease the awkwardness, she follows her colleague's advice to compliment her boyfriend whenever possible, making the atmosphere even stranger. During a meal, Yeon-soo tries to please Choi-young by actively choosing his favorite Italian food. Clumsy Choi-young, like in his high school days, accidentally spills steak on Yeon-soo's clothes. About to explode, she remembers her colleague's advice that men hate nagging, so she smiles, wipes the grease from her clothes, and blames herself for not using a napkin. She affectionately feeds Choi-young. After dinner, recalling another tip from her colleague about creating romance, Yeon-soo sneakily corners Choi-young when no one is around, stands on tiptoe, closes her eyes, and puckers her lips. Choi-young slaps her forehead, wondering how much fake alcohol Yeon-soo had consumed to behave so oddly. When Choi-young realizes all Yeon-soo's actions were to maintain their relationship, he feels deeply moved and expresses his love for the ever-changing Yeon-soo, who always brings new feelings. The couple then visits Yeon-soo's best friend's bar, which is Choi-young's favorite activity. Together, in the cold season, they order a steaming fish cake soup and chat all night. Every relationship needs a reason to end. Choi-young, having been dumped without reason, spends many nights drunk. Unable to understand the breakup, he starts to dislike everything about himself. Years after the breakup, they fall in love again. Despite living a shameless life daily, the reason for their past breakup still troubles Choi-young. One night, Choi-young asks about the breakup. Yeon-soo becomes uneasy and recalls her poor family background, having no friends and not wanting to burden Choi-young. She had used the breakup to cover her insecurities. She thought she could pretend nothing was wrong in her busy life and adapt to life without Choi-young. However, at night, her deep pain reveals itself. Facing Choi-young's question, she gives a ridiculous reason, claiming she was too exhausted from juggling part-time jobs and job hunting, and tells Choi-young not to worry about it. She then uses the late hour as an excuse to leave his house. What Yeon-soo doesn't know is that during a recent visit to her home, Choi-young learned everything from her grandmother. Yeon-soo grew up with her grandmother without any relatives or friends, swallowing all her hardships alone. Her grandmother also revealed the family's past debts and the move. Choi-eung senses some truth in this. Now, as they become somewhat famous from a documentary, they are often surrounded by fans on their way to work. Choi-eung lets Yeon-soo go ahead to work while he handles the fans. Arriving at work, he finds colleagues discussing the documentary. Under the nourishment of love, the once distant Yeon-soo actively invites her colleagues to a dinner, a first for the company. Due to Yeon-soo's arrival, the atmosphere among colleagues became more harmonious. After a dinner party, Yeon-soo received a call from Choi-eung, who said he wouldn't pick her up. Years ago, Yeon-soo had said it would be embarrassing for him to pick her up drunk, as it seemed too dependent. Yeon-soo explained that she said this because she didn't want to take up Choi-eung's time, and taxi fare was too expensive for her back then. Upon learning this, Choi-eung asked Yeon-soo to turn around, revealing he had been silently following her and joined her. He blamed himself for not understanding Yeon-soo's feelings sooner. As lovers, they grew to understand each other better, including Choi-eung. Passing a jewelry store, Choi-eung remembered Yeon-soo's dislike for exchanging gifts, calling it a waste of money. However, he ignored her words and went inside to buy a gift. When the salesperson asked what type his girlfriend was, Choi-eung blurted out "beautiful," before realizing the question was about her style of dress. After buying the gift, he returned home, found Yeon-soo asleep in the sunlight, and carefully put the necklace on her. He quickly explained it was on sale, though Yeon-soo was not angry and happily accepted the gift. He then confessed he had paid full price and spent an hour choosing it. Yeon-soo and Choi-eung spent rare leisure time together at home, reading, overeating, painting, and watching TV. After her bath, Yeon-soo playfully asked Choi-eung to dry her hair. Despite his playful complaint, he happily fetched the hairdryer. Yeon-soo felt a sudden worry about this happiness, which helped her let go of her anxiety. Choi-eung's art exhibit was about to start, but Yeon-soo decided not to attend the first day, fearing media attention from a documentary might overshadow the event. Although Choi-eung didn't mind, he respected her decision. At work, Yeon-soo saw students playing and smiled, reminded of her playful times with Choi-eung. Noticing her change, a colleague asked if she was in love, and Yeon-soo openly shared her relationship and invited her colleague to the exhibit. After work, Yeon-soo drove to the exhibit, but turned back upon hearing her grandmother was seriously ill. At the hospital, seeing her frail grandmother, Yeon-soo cried. Her grandmother only had one request. Meanwhile, Choi-eung waited till the end of the exhibit, but Yeon-soo didn't show up. When he got home, he found Yeon-soo crying at his doorstep, worried she had ruined everything. Choi-eung comforted her, promising such incidents wouldn't happen again. He shared his plans to study in France and asked her to wait for his return, promising everything would be fine. After his departure, their relationship had sweet moments and arguments. Once, after a day without messages, Choi-eung called to express his love. Yeon-soo was thrilled, especially when Choi-eung appeared behind her. 2 years later, they were placing books upstairs. Yeon-soo curiously asked when Choi-eung had started liking her. As Choi-eung secretly drew, Yeon-soo opened it and saw. Choi-eung sees his hand for the first time. He lifts Yeon-soo's hand and proposes to her. After getting married, the couple receives another invitation from Kim Ji-young. Fans, learning of their marriage, eagerly wish to see their life after the wedding.